welcome or welcome back. My name is Ari, and hopefully you can tell from the title, this is a 24-hour reading vlog. So before we get into the reading, a little bit of housekeeping. With these videos, how I do my 24-hour reading vlogs is, I'm old. I sleep, so it's not like I'm gonna start this recording at 6 p.m. on Friday and end 6 p.m. on Saturday. Instead, I use a stopwatch on my phone, and while I am reading, I start the stopwatch, read, and then anytime I pause, whether it be to eat, sleep, whatever, I pause it. So usually I end up completing the 24 hours in 2 days instead of one really long day, because I would just stop functioning if I didn't sleep. So that's what we're doing. Also, normally when I do these, I have like a series that I'm reading where it's like I've got 6 books in the series and I would read all 6 of those books. I'm not doing that today. I'm actually trying to catch up on my reading for this month. It's the 20th today, so headed towards the back half of the month, and I haven't done a whole lot of reading my TBR because I've been putting out a video every single day. So this is my catch up. So let's go over what I plan to try to read in this video. I might not get to all of it, and I might end up reading other things after this. We're gonna start with The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I'm about halfway through with this already. I'm not gonna talk about this much in this video because I'm making a video about the top 10 nominations, top 10 winners, I guess, for Goodreads Choice Fantasy, and this is the only book that I haven't read off of that top 10 list yet. So finishing this one out so I can make that video, so not going to talk about it a lot in this video. Just realized my toolbox is just setting out here, right? Beautiful. Beautiful. Another book that I'm going to be reading is Before Your Memory Fades. This is on my Dungeon of Books TBR this month. It's a short story collection of 4 short stories. I don't have a physical copy of it. It's an ARC, so it's NetGalley ARC. So I'll be reading it on my phone probably. I have a Kindle, but I'll probably read it on my phone because I'm lazy like that. So this is high on my priority list. Another Dungeon of Books TBR book that's high on my priority list is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. Longer book, so high but not super high on the priority list, but I definitely need to get this done before the end of the month, so I might as well read this in my 24-hour period of time. This is also like the second book in a duology, so it'll get a series off of my series spreadsheet where I have like 60 unfinished series. The last Dungeons and Books TBR book is Monstrous Volume 4, so this is a graphic novel. It should be really, really quick to read. Definitely the time to slip this in here. Maybe decompress between some of the longer books that I've got. Another option I have once I finish out some of those Dungeon of Books TBR books is Dead Silence. This will fit the prompt for Buzzwordathon this month, which is Life or Death, and this is like one of my more anticipated reads. It sounds very interesting, and I want to squeeze this in anywhere possible. Another option I have is The Secret History by Donna. Very thick book. Doesn't really make sense to be on this TBR except for I've been listening to this as an audiobook, just periodically. So yeah, I'm almost halfway through this as an audiobook, so I might as well stick this on here. Like if I've got a headache or something like that, I want to continue reading but not necessarily like physically reading, this is the audiobook I'm in the middle of right now. That's pretty much it. If I end up picking up anything else, I'll tell you about it at that point. I'm going to start reading some of The Lost Metal, and I will come back and chit chat with you once I got some of that read and I have something to talk to you about. that. Let's have a quick update. I am about 10.5 hours in, so about halfway through, like an hour and a half short of halfway through. And I have finished Before Your Memory Fades by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And this is the third book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. It's a collection of short stories. All of them are a collection of like 4 short stories about a cafe in Japan where you can go to the past. There are a lot of rules. So it's not like people get excited about like, oh, I could time travel, but the rules are still restrictive that you don't, it's not worth it for most people. So this is kind of the stories of the people who it is worth for. So like the 2 main rules are you can only travel back to the cafe that you're in and you can't get up from your chair. So if the person hasn't visited the cafe, then you can't interact with them. You can't change the past, and you have to leave before or you have to finish your coffee and leave before your coffee gets cold, or else you're stuck as a ghost forever. So like I said, this is the 3rd installment in this series. These take place in Japan, written by a Japanese author and translated to English. And I feel like this one, like, it's the worst translated of all of the ones, if that makes sense. I don't know if they changed translators or the translator got lazy, or the copy I read was an ARC, so maybe that's the issue. But I just feel like it's not translated as well as the other ones. Like, it's perfectly readable, but it reads like a translation. The other thing is, I don't know that I would recommend this series to a lot of Americans or Europeans, because the actions of the characters are not necessarily the actions that an American or a British person would take. Like, their way of thinking is different because it's a completely different culture. It's not a westernized culture, and the way people think in Japan might not always align with the way people think in like the Western world. So yeah, for me, I don't know. I like the stories, and I understand that I'm reading about a culture that's not my own, but I've seen very negative reviews of this where people do not understand. They're not reading about their own damn culture, and they get kind of like offended by the characters' actions, which is weird because you're just getting offended by somebody else's culture instead of trying to understand their culture. So there's that. If you don't want to read about like actual Japanese culture from a Japanese writer, definitely skip this. But overall, they're sad. Like, everything's about people dying, because that's really the only time you need to travel to the past, is to talk to somebody who's dead. But yeah. I liked it. I didn't love it. I'm gonna say firm 3-star in here, I guess. I also finished The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I'm not really going to talk about this in this video because I've got a whole nother video where I'm going to be talking about this more. Basically, I'm going to say there's a trope in here that I really don't like. It's not a major part of the story, so I'm not even sure why it exists, and the fact that it exists just makes me unhappy. Maybe it's a setup for the next Mistborn series era, that's what I'm looking for. And if it is, then I'm gonna hate the next Mistborn era because I hate the trope so much. And the story in here just, it didn't do anything for me. Like, I think this is one of the worst Brandon Sanderson books that I've read. Yikes. But yeah, 3 stars. Update on the rest of the reading. I'm listening to this as an audiobook. I've got about 2 hours left. It's like 2 chapters, I think. It's not very much left at all. These are the next 2 I'm prioritizing. I really need to read A Fire Endless, but I just finished The Lost Metal, and I really don't want to read more long books. So I'm gonna grab 2 short books, even though I really should prioritize that over this, because that one's on my TBR and this one's not. But I still have 13.5 hours, so I think I can finish all 3 of them. I think. maybe. I can at least get most of that read. So we're gonna do these two. I'll check in after I finish these two, and then we'll pick up A Fire Endless and go from there. Reading update time. I have finished The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This will also be in another video, so not going to talk about it a lot here, but it was okay. I think that I just don't like dark academia. I haven't found anything that I really love that's not like fantasy. In like the dark academia category. So I also finished Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. I'm happy to report that I actually like this book. It was getting rough in there where it was like 3-star, 3-star, 3-star. But this one I actually really liked. This is about like a repair crew. It says salvage crew on here, but I don't think they actually salvage anything. They like repair things in deep space. And they come across a like luxury space cruise ship that vanished 20 years prior, and no one knows what happened to it, why it vanished, anything like that. No one had been able to find it except for they found it, and the world that they live in has this like rule, like it's based on maritime laws, and if they find something they can salvage it and claim like the money from the wrecks. They're going into this ghost ship and trying to get some things from the ship so they can prove that they were the ones who found that ship and then get rich, basically. Because it is a very wealthy luxury liner, and then they know that anything that they don't take from the ship, like right then and there, somebody else is going to come salvage before they can get their hands on it. So they're trying to get what they can get, but also trying to be respectful of all the dead people on this ship. And then shit gets creepy because it's a horror story. So the cause or the reason for the creepiness, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm not even going to tell you what the creepiness is, but the root cause is something that I predicted or guessed before the characters figured it out. I felt it was pretty obvious, but I also didn't feel like me guessing that took anything away from the story, because this isn't a mystery, it's a horror. So yeah. I enjoyed it very much. 4 stars. Yay. I also finished Monstrous Volume 4. Like, this is so hard to explain because it's very in-depth and very complicated fantasy universe where you've got like humans, you've got cats, you've got like humanoid animals, and then you've got like this hybrid. And the humans are at war with anybody who's not like actually human. Our main character, Mika, is basically trying to figure out this shit that's going on with the old gods, that she's directly connected to, like what happened to her mother, like a bunch of stuff like that. She's a very angry young woman, and in this adventure she kind of discovers who her father is, which she didn't know previously. And then decides that is she going to actually work with her father or continue on her own. And that's pretty much the plot of this particular novel. The story, I feel like the story is okay, but the artwork in here is amazing. So, I don't know. It's a 3-star. I very much enjoy reading this, but I think I'm here mostly for the artwork and not necessarily the plotline. And I'm at 18 hours and 11 minutes, so I have, what, 6 hours left to go, which I definitely can finish another book. So I am working on A Fire Endless. I'm only like 3 chapters into this, and I'm reading it on my phone, or I was, because that was easier than holding a whole book because I'm lazy. But yeah, so I've been reading this. I should be able to get through this in 6 hours. or get almost done with this in 6 hours. If I don't get done with it, that's fine. If I do get done with it, then I will find something else to read. We'll figure that out when I get to that point. Anyway, I will check back in with you once I hit that 24-hour mark. Well, last off, you had 6 hours left, and the goal was to read A Fire Endless in that 6 hours. I did complete this. It was a very good, like, conclusion to this duology. I was very happy about reading this. Great. Love it. All of that kind of stuff. This series takes place in like a fantasy version of what I assume is like a historical Scotland. Well before electricity. They have their tartans. It just feels like Scotland. They all lived on an island divided, like magically, mystically divided, where a different clan rules each side of the island, and the west side of the island are very proficient in magic, and they have magic, but they can't grow crops very well. And the east side of the island, it harms them to use magic, but they're very like abundant with like food and things like that. The first book just basically follows people in the east with like raids from the west. This one, one of the characters from the east is in the west now, and they're kind of like trying to like make the island whole again without that magical divide. That's kind of like the ultimate goal, but I don't think the characters really know that's their ultimate goal. Very magical, very interesting. I love like the romance, the main characters. This actually has like fairly graphic, not fade to black sex scenes, which I didn't expect. I mean, the first book did too, but from like the premise of this, I didn't expect, I expected everything to be fade to black, and it is not. So if that's something that bothers you, maybe don't pick this up. Apologies about the dog making noise. Overall, this is very good. I like the story. There was one part in here that kind of pissed me off because it was just blatant miscommunication, and y'all know I hate that trope. But it was like one chapter and then it kind of stopped. They never really communicated, but it's like they figured it out on their own. It was weird, whatever. But yeah, I like this. I like the conclusion. I recommend it if the plot or anything sounds interesting to you. Now, when I was done with that book, I still had about 2 hours left. And I'm like, okay, what can I read in 2 hours? I can't get like, these are the other 2 books I need to read this month. Neither one of them are gonna fit into a 2-hour block. So I could start it, but I wanted to like finish a book in 2 hours. So I ended up reading Lost in a Moment and Found by Seanan McGuire. This one is like a continuation of the Wayward Children series. This is one set in another realm instead of at the school, because like every other book is like realm, school, realm, school. This is a realm, brand new character. There are content warnings at the beginning of this book. The child runs away because she's in a like icky situation. Her stepfather is like gaslighting her and her mother and is giving off pedophilia vibes. Nothing happens to the girl at all. So if you're worried about that, it's like the possibility is there. Like she knows something bad's going to happen. She knows something's wrong with him, but he never actually gets to do anything. She runs before then. So if that's something that's going to bother you, you definitely need to know that going in the book. And it does say this, like there's a whole page like right at the beginning of the book that says, hey, this is going to happen just so you know, and this is the outcome of it. So it's definitely not a spoiler. It's definitely something that people will need to know going into this. I enjoyed this. I like the character. I like the world. It's a world where like lost things go. So if you lose something, they end up going to this world. This world's kind of like a way station where it has doors to many, many different worlds that come and go all the time depending on, you know, what's lost and what the characters need to find. So very interesting world, very interesting concept, very good story. I definitely like this one, even though I didn't like the one previous, because I don't like Cora as a character. But this one doesn't feature Cora, so I was all fine. You can read this one without reading any of the other Wayward Children's books, but you'll definitely understand more and definitely get like Easter eggs if you've read the previous books. So there's that. I am at 24 hours and 18 minutes. So we're done. I made it 24 hours. I read 7 books in that time period. I don't know how many pages that was, but I'm gonna math it out and put it up right here of how many pages I read in 24 hours. Any of the books that I kind of breezed over and didn't talk a whole lot about in this video, I will be talking about in videos later this week. I think all of my like reading videos are coming out this week. But thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.